everybody, welcome back to the workshop, and this is part 2 of the microwave drawer cabinet. Today's video we're going to cover some dovetails. So we're going to cut a half blind dovetail, and very nice joint, very strong, a lot of glue surface, and we're going to use a simple router jig to do it with, no expensive machinery. They're kind of pricey, some of the jigs, but if you're going to do a lot of drawers, you kind of need it. So first step, let me get you down a little bit closer here. And I'm going to show you the basic layout. That will work, I think. Basically, you start by exploding your drawer. So it's all laid out the way it's going to go together. So what I like to do is we're going to mark the top edge with an X, and this is going to be the inside of the drawer. So mark them first, and then we're going to go with number 1, number 1. We're going to go all the way around it. 2, number 3, and number 4. And this is going to affect how it sets up in the router jig. So let's go over to here, and this is the router jig, and we're going to be using a router with a collar that follows the template guide and a dovetail bit. I'm not sure if it's 7 degrees, I'm not positive on that, and the router will ride around in these fingers and cut the dovetail. So what we want to do is the X, which is going to be the top of the drawer, is going to go to the outside of the jig. There's a set of stops here that keep it from moving. There's a set of stops on the front. So you're going to bring your pieces up, and you want to make sure you're touching the jig nice and tight and square. And you want to take your time on this, unless you want to cut all new parts. So you want to just make sure it's sitting nice and flush. You lock down good in the jig, and we're going to start with the router. I don't want to get hammered about safety glasses. And I got my Bob Ross shirt on. Feeling kind of creative today. What you want to do with this is they tell you to make a climb cut across the face of it first, and this prevents a lot of tear out. And then we're going to start here, and we're going to work our way back. So let's go ahead. Go into the first. Work your way. And as simple as that. So, go for a test fit here. And I'm not sure how good of a view you have there. Yeah, it's not bad. So, just want a nice fit. You don't want them sloppy loose, but you don't want them overly tight because you'll be squeezing all your glue out. So I'm going to go ahead and make the rest of the cuts here. And also, I forgot to discuss the size of the drawer box depends on the drawer runners that you use. In this case, it required an inch of clearance. So you measure your opening. In that case, it was 27 inches. So the front and the back of the drawer are going to be 26. You deduct that off of there and it'll be a perfect fit. So I'll go ahead and get the rest of these dovetails cut, and I'll be with you here and we'll cut the bottom for it. So we are back at the table saw, and it is time to make, this is just my mock-up. We've got to cut a slot in here to receive the 1/4 inch oak plywood bottom. So what you do, and remember before when we cut the dovetails on these panels, that we put an X that would be the top of the drawer. Very important. And these numbers we will transfer to the bottom, because when we sand these, everything has been assigned a side. So you want to flip everything over so the bottom side, which is the inside of the drawer, is down, the top of the drawer away from the fence. I'm running just my 1/8 inch curved blade, and we're going to make 2 passes in order to open this groove up to accept this 1/4 inch plywood. So I made my first sample cut there, and we'll go ahead and just run again, X away from the fence, and I want to see from coming in between my tails, because this will all be hidden. We're going to make 2 cuts, so we'll stack these back up as we make them. Make sure the X. I've made that mistake enough times. Very aggravating. And if I was doing a bunch of drawers, I would be putting a dado head in. It would take me longer to install it than to, now, we're going to move it over, we're going to make a test cut. I'll be taking just a, you want it to be snug, but you don't want it to be too tight. So there you go. And it's directly between. So I'll just do this one just to show you. Okay, we'll shut the saw off. And this is another good use for our pine up at the sawmill. It's cheap. It's good for making test cuts and setups. And look at that. There's the bottom of the drawer. So we'll go ahead and finish cutting the other cuts. And again, like I just mentioned, we're going to transfer all these numbers to the bottom side, well, to the bottom side of the drawer. So that way when I sand this all off, these numbers and X's will go away. I don't need the X anymore. I know where the bottom's at. Just to save you a lot of aggravation, because you want to keep these numbers. These dovetails were cut at the same time on that jig. So they're kind of assigned a spot. So, all right, I'll finish this up and we'll be back at the workbench. Well, we're making some good progress here. So we got the drawer just loosely fit here, and we got to measure for the bottom. Simplest way to do this, I took a measurement of inside of the dado here, and what it come out to is 5/16 deep. So that adds up to 5/8 when you double that number. The walls of the box are 5/8 thick. What I like to do is I'll take my tape measure, put it in here. I'll measure to the outside of this, and it says 21 7/16. And then I'm going to take a 1/16 off of that number. You don't want the bottom so tight that you can't get this thing together. I've fought them before. You're better off to have a little bit of wiggle in them. You don't, not much. That just gives it a 30-second all the way around it. So we'll go ahead and cut a bottom. And then we'll go ahead and get this thing final sanded, and we'll start putting it together. We'll glue it up. All right, we got a good, everything's nice and sanded, everything's numbered, and we're gonna go ahead and start assembling this thing. So let's just make some sense out of this. We'll use that one, and this one is number one. This will go on last. So basically, all you're gonna do, put some glue out on a piece of plywood or whatever you have. That'll probably be close to what we're going to need. What I do is I start on one side, and we're going to stack this. We're going to put it together fairly easy. Famous last words. And you don't need crazy amounts of glue. You got a lot of glue surface here. So all I do is just basically just glue the pins. And I sand the inside of the drawer only. The outside will be sanded when we do the final, when it's clamped and it's done. You glue this up and come back in an hour, you won't ever get this back apart. But to each his own. I use no fasteners, just a couple bar clamps. All right. So we'll go for this side. And what did I do here? I think I went backwards. See, I'm getting myself confused. All right, 2. There it is. Sorry about that. There we go. There's our first piece. We'll just turn it around, so make it a little bit easier. And I see my number 1 and my number 1. And I'll just take this over to the edge of the bench, and I'll bring it down a little bit lower here. Because this is going to make it a lot easier to put that bottom in when we do it this way. And just take your time. And I do not glue my bottom in. And I do not put glue on the other mating joint of this neither. There's enough glue on here and really the top and bottom, there's that's the two you don't want them to. All right, let's see if we can do this right this time. All right, let's come around the other side here. And we'll go back up higher again. And let's see what we're looking at here. All right, here's my oak bottom. This has already been sanded. So we're gonna slip it in, no glue. We do not want this thing, we want it to move. Now, same thing, we're gonna go both sides of these now. And again, just take your time. glue them up. And drawers are not that hard to make. They're a little time consuming, but this drawer here will outlast me. Absolutely. And Dovetail's been around for a long time. But years ago, everything was hand cut. The router has sort of changed the way we do dovetails today. Just a little bit more on that bottom one, and let's get this last side. And we're coming down the finish line, everybody, I promise you. And anybody new to the channel, yeah, I do run a sawmill, and that all started when I built this cabinet shop. There was a big spruce tree in the way of the building when I was digging the footers for this building. And this was a nice big spruce tree, and I said, boy, it's a shame to cut it up just for firewood. And so the guy that was digging my footers with the backhoe, his dad had a band mill. And it was a little Casco band mill, remember it very well. That's what I actually start sawing with back in the early 90s. So I sent a log down to him, and I stopped back a couple times. Did you get my log sawed? No, I didn't have a chance yet. 2 weeks go by. Did you get a chance? No. And then finally he said, I'll tell you what, I'm going to teach you how to run that band mill, and you can cut all the wood you want. And that's what started it all. So, oh, sorry about the microphone. I need a pocket Bob Ross shirt. All right, I got another rag here. And what we're going to do is going to lay it down the way it should be. Just going to wipe the bulk of the glue off, because that's all going to get sanded off anyway. So what I made up is some blocks. This is the pre-finished wood that's inside of my cabinet, so it has a finish on it. You want to set the blocks right to the edge of the tails. And what we're going to do, just get some bar clamps. Oh, drawers I do check. My cabinet, okay, there's my 34 inches. I double checked this earlier. Take your diagonal, and that gives you a perfect square. You don't need a framing square if you measure diagonal. And you do not want to get carried away with tons of clamp pressure. It's not necessary. Make sure the shiny side goes in. Hold it a little bit short of the corner. You take your time, don't get in a hurry. Everything works out much better. Okay, you want to just snug them up. Now, I'm going to go this direction. And I got 2 more clamps. And it is raining outside, everybody. What a better time to be in the workshop here. Just a miserable fall day. And that looks good. I'll bring you in a little bit closer here. And get you off the stand. And there you have it. A nice, well cut. And I cut them so they just go a little bit deeper, because this all will sand off. So when I do the final sanding. So, all right. Next step, we will be getting into doing a simple drawer front and final sanding, and it'll be time for finish here. So let's go ahead and find a piece of oak and make a nice drawer front. All right. I found a nice piece of oak to make a drawer front out of. This is off of our mill. And I do keep all these short cutoffs. These just pay to have these things around. So we're going to get it into the rough dimension. The drawer front is going to be 10 inches by 30 inches. So let's head over to the table saw here. I'll get this over here and I'll bring you over. And we're going to cut it into rough size. And then we'll go over to the big jointer and flatten it. So I'll show you the process from rough board to finished board. How I do it doesn't mean what I do is right, but that's how I've been doing it for 30 some years. And someone had asked me, is this a Powermatic table saw? Yes, it is. In fact, I'm going to start at 11 inches because I want to get rid of some of this. Definitely get rid of that wane. So let's fire up the dust system here. And let's get the blade up high enough. That could be used for a face trim part. Then, get down to about 10 and a half, take some of that other. All right, there's our blank. All right, let's go over to the big jointer here. This is a Porter C jointer. And, oh, it's older than most people that watch the channel. This probably gets back into the 1940s. Let's just go back here so you can see what I'm going to do here. So I have a feeder on it. This is a Holzer feeder. The feeder really that's my safety. That's why there's no guard on this machine, because I do a lot of edging with it. That guard would be out to here. And there'd be no way that I could get in there to do anything. So, the way this is set up, the wider the board, you just change a set of holes here. And I do all my flat facing on this. I just want to make sure I got enough knife exposed. There's 11 inches, that would be more than enough. And this is a 4 knife cutter head. It's a large diameter cutter head. I think it's 4 3/4 inch. The bigger the diameter of the cutter head, the less tear out you're going to get on it. And let's bring the feeder in. Basically got some spring-loaded rubber tires on it, and it literally feeds. You want to lock this down good. You don't want nothing moving on you. And the depth adjustment is a big hand wheel on the back. Let me see what I'm set for. Well, we can get on a little bit deeper. That'll be good. And I always bring it back up to where it's grabbing. Okay, let's go get a board. Bring it over. And what I'm going to do is take that cup out of it. There's a cup in it. And I always put the crown up on the cup. And this will feed it through. When it comes out the back side of this machine, it will be nice and flat. So let's just go ahead and fire this baby up. And it's going to be loud, so. Dust system. Feeder. Let her go. Now we're ready to go over to the planer, so let's head over there. But look at that, that's just beautiful piece of red oak there. So, all right, I'll take you along. And I have a 24-inch SCMI planer. In fact, let's just go on the other side here. And the planer itself, that's another backbone of the shop. Can't have a shop without a planer or joiner unless you buy all your stuff pre-planed. So let's bring it down to, we'll take it down in a few cuts. We'll start out at 1 inch just to, and these knives need sharpened too. I'm getting a little bit overwhelmed with. I did a lot of planing for some guy, a lot of walnut. So let's fire up the dust system here. And let's get it down to thickness. Gauge blocks made up that tell me where to stop. There it is. Just, you want to just get it till it just touches. That's probably getting within a few thousandths. There you have it. Shut this noise off. Okay, all that's left to do on this is to get this thing down to the final width, final length, and then I'll meet up with you at the door machine. I'm going to show you how we're going to put a nice edge on here with my unique 250 door machine. I can make cabinet doors on it, drawer fronts, whatever you want. It beats a shaper because it's a lot safer. I'll show you that here in a couple minutes. This is my door machine, and when I say it's safer than a shaper, it's a lot safer. This machine does everything to cut every part for making a cabinet door. It cuts the cope and the pattern and the panel. It also does a back cut on the panel at the same time when you're raising your panels. And also you can put a edge bit in for a door edge, and that's what we're going to use right now. I got a cutter set up in there to do a door edge, and this is what the profile will look like. So this machine really is, they call it unique, and it is unique. There's a stop that comes out that basically tells you where to set the edge of your board so that it's in line with the cutter head. I installed a piece of wood here. This is a sacrificial piece of wood that prevents tear out. A lot of people, they don't realize That is very important, that little piece of scrap right there. And then it has a clamp on it. So when you're working with the shaper, you're close to cutter heads. You put that nice and tight where you want it, you hit the clamps down. That's got a good hold of it, and then this whole table slides past the, I got some boards over here. But yeah, the whole thing slides past the cutter head, and we'll demonstrate that here with that drawer front. So get that out of the way. Let me go fire up the dust system, and we'll go ahead and make a couple cuts and put some door edges on that. And in this case, you're going to put the finished side down. So I picked the finished side. Always run end grain first. Very important. Hit the stop to the side. Make sure the table's all the way in. And then hit your clamps down. Then you can run your thing in. Go ahead and fire this thing up. Make sure we're back far enough from the cutter head. Nice and parallel. Clamp down. Trying to get hurt, unless you got your fingers underneath there. And again, lay back in the cutter head. It's got a board pull. Right. Let me shut this noise off. And there it is. The drawer front is now edged off. A little bit of final sanding on the edge, and this will be ready for stain. So I'll see you at the workbench. Okay, we're coming down the home stretch here, and this is that edge that the machine, and you can see a little bit rough when it come off the machine, and just a little bit of 180 grit, and that's how simple it is. Just there's no substitute for a little bit of hand sanding. I don't care how equipped your shop might be. There's nothing more precise than to actually feel it with your fingers. I just use the radius of the paper to get to where it needs to be. But this step here is going to be the difference between a real nice finish and a not so nice finish. And then we're just going to go around the sides the same way. But the sides are pretty smooth already. And then one more side and we're done. So we'll finish this up And we'll start to stain the drawer front, stain the cabinet front, and then we'll start on polyurethane. Normally I would lacquer everything, but with the lacquer, I didn't want to buy a bunch of lacquer to spray one little small cabinet. I have no other projects going on at the moment. And I just like to knock that little sharp edge off. Okay, we'll be ready to stain. Well, it's time to stain everything. I told the customer just to go ahead and get some stain, and I told him don't get much. We're just putting a drawer front and a face frame. Normally, I would go to the company I deal with my finishes, and I like to use M.L. Campbell. It's not a homeowner consumer product, so you sort of have to be a commercial account to get it, but they will custom blend the stain to match. So I'm just using this is Varathane, and we just want to do is just soak it down. This is the back of the drawer front. Start with it first, because when we turn it over, we're going to set it on blocks. In the back of the drawer, all we're doing is just sealing it. We're going to give it one coat of urethane too. And normally the commercial stuff does better with just wiping on with a rag. I do like oil-based finishes. They come a long way with waterborne products. What I don't like about it, it gives you a lot of grain raise. I'm not talking about raising grain, I'm talking about grain raise. But yeah, it'll cause you some grief. Yeah, we just want to get just enough on her to, you're not going to see this, so then basically what I like to do is get one corner of the rag just a little bit wet, and then you can sort of work it in. And this Varathane seems to be a fairly thick product, which is kind of nice. Just toning it down, and we're matching his actual door. I'll bring that over here in a second. Yeah, we're going to call this pretty much done. Just making sure that the underside of this cut on that edge got 100% coverage, because the worst thing is you're ready to put the urethane on, and then you see one little spot, and it's like, ah. All right, we'll flip it over. Same thing. And with stain, stir it constantly, because if that solid sets to the bottom of that can, as you go, you will be staining with a different color product. And customers usually don't like that. I know I wouldn't. So we will just work our way around. And you can see where I sanded that, how nice that turned out. Comes off a cutter head, it's a little rough. And then we're brand new knives, they're sharp. End grain does not like to be machined very well. So I told him it's a shame we're going to use probably about 3-4 ounces on this whole project. But that's why I said don't buy a quart unless you're going to be staining some trim to match this. And it don't matter which way you're going with the grain. You just want to cover the whole piece of wood. And with the brush, work it in. Make sure you're getting everything covered, because once you start wiping it, kind of is an advantage to go both ways, just to work it in. All right, enough of that. And again, I like to have it just slightly damp, so when you're wiping it, you're not completely just drying off your, and watch your edges. Like anything, when I saw lumber, we take our time. And I constantly get comments about, you could have saved time by doing this. Well, or we could have made a mistake and ruined something. I'm not in this for production no more. Them days are over in my life. Whenever I do sell any work for somebody, I do tell them that it's going to be, I work 40 hours a week, we run a mill, and you're at our mercy. This color will change slightly. I'll get this door that came off of his cabinet, and I'll tell you what, that's not a bad match. I mean, look at the panel. It's going to be really close. I don't know how far this cabinet's going to sit from his existing cabinets. So anyhow, the drawer front's done. We're going to do the same thing to the cabinet face, and I got the drawer box completely sanded out, and also important is tack rag. You want to have tack rag because when we put the urethane on, we're going to be sanding between coats. And also I have one more demonstration here. A lot of questions on, and I'll show you on the cabinet here. Everybody wanted to know on the microwave drawer, the divider I put in here. Let me pick this cabinet back up. And the question being, let me get you off the stand here, or I'll just get you down lower here. The question being, on the shelf here, why did you run the pocket holes through the top when you could have run them through the bottom so they would have been invisible? Here is the reason. There is an actual reason. This is flush, okay? So I made up a little sample of flush. Do you see that screw poking through? That's what happens when you send them up from the bottom versus through the top. You're about guaranteed every time that this is going to blow through the face frame. Why it didn't happen on the bottom here is because there's about a 3/16 lip. And when you allow that to come down slightly from the surface of the top and you come through it, it will not blow through. This needs to be flush. So that's the reason. So I think there was a couple people that had mentioned that, and I says, I'll point it out. So, all right, enough of that. And once the stain is dry, we'll come back and we will start with some polyurethane. And then once it's urethane, we're gonna go ahead and put this thing together and we'll be done with this project. I'll talk to you a little bit later. Well, it's the next day and the polyurethane, or the stain is nice and dry. And I'm just gonna use just basically brushing polyurethane out of a can. It's made by Varathane in this case. They're all pretty comparable. I like Minwax if I'm gonna be using it, but this is what the customer supplied, so this is what we're gonna use. And stir it up good. This is a satin finish. And you gotta stir that bottom up. Basically, just take your time, put a decent coat on. And this is just a drawer front. It's not too hard. I like to spray everything, but I just couldn't see going and buying all that product. And I'd have so much left over. If I had other jobs coming up, yeah, I probably would have. But by the time you clean your spray equipment, it's not worth it. I'm just using a cheap old throwaway brush here. Some people spend, they can spend a ton of money on a polyurethane brush. Just make sure no bristles fall off in your, but I like to do the edges first. You got to move kind of quick because this stuff is fairly fast setting. And once you get the edges done, then you can sort of flood the middle a little bit more. And it'll all even out. When it dries, it looks good. But I'm not a huge fan of poly, but it sure does make a good finish. It's kind of a pain to work with sometimes, but and I hope the camera is where you can see what I'm doing. Let me just double check you here. Yeah, we'll turn it down a little bit more. And just work them edges in. You don't want a waterfall. We're not pouring epoxy like Joe's bar top. That would be bad. Once you get it on where you want it, then you're sort of going to just come across it with a nice long brush stroke. And once we got this two coated, this is about all you're gonna see of this finish. A little bit of stain, a little bit of urethane. It can get boring. If I was spraying it, I'll have to do a project when we're gonna spray some lacquer. I think everybody would like that. And then the final brushing, just come across it, just nice long strokes. And then that way it just flows it in nice and even. And you can see there's already a dry spot starting to show up. And then just one more time, just check your edge. And I come underneath of it, because you don't want a bunch of drips down there. And we'll go ahead and do the face frame of the cabinet. Put one more coat on that drawer. And I'll see you when it's time to put hardware on this thing, and let's get this job done. I'll talk to you then. Well, it's a couple days later, and it's time to put the drawer in the cabinet. And I'm going to show you what I do. The easiest way I found to do this, first of all, I'm using a KV full extension drawer runner. I don't use the soft close blooms. They're a little bit more of a pain to work with. So first thing you want to do is break these things apart. This part goes in the cabinet, and this part will go on the drawer box. So first step is we need to establish a line where we want to set the drawer runner. So the easiest thing I had found to do is get a piece of 3/4 inch plywood, or something 3/4 inch thick, don't have to be plywood. And basically just draw a line. And this magically will put everything at the right height. Make it good and dark so you can see it. And the next step, when these drawers get tall like these get to be, now you're going to establish a front or a back. If you have a preference, and I did see, yeah, I definitely wanted that in the back. If there's any defects you want to try to hide. And then you're going to basically take this, and I'm going to put this down lower. I can't see it. Let me get my screw gun. I am disorganized today. It's Sunday. It's a raw, bitter day. So let's bring you down a little bit closer to where we're doing the work. Okay. I think you're in the picture. So what you want to do is eye that line up to the center of these holes. And I like to start with one that has a slot that goes back and forth, because you're going to want this front to be flush. So let's start with this one. I'm using a 5/8 real coarse thread screw, and it bites in good to either hardwoods or if you're using plywoods. Now here's the point. You want to make sure that front is absolutely flush. And now you can go ahead and just fill in a few. You want at least 4 screws. I like to put an extra one up towards the front. So here's 5. All right, that's step number 1. So I will continue on that here in a minute. Let's come back up to the cabinet. And while everybody was sleeping, no, I put in some blocks, and the reason for that, okay, now, also these drawer runners come with a back plate. So you basically just click it in, yeah, like that. And I cut a piece of 1/4 inch plywood. And this is just going to rest on it. It's going to give it just a touch above you want to do is you want to pull this bracket out just far enough that you have to push it back, because the next step is kind of fun when you're trying to put them back screws in. But you want to be sure that this is going to be flush with the face of the cabinet. We got it good there. And this drawer runner, you're just going to look for a window in here that you can get in there with the screws. And you want to go into that little filler block you made. And take your time. That looks good. It's nice and flush. And I'm going to go into the back side of it. And the same thing, we got slots that will let you adjust it over. You're going to have to just put one screw in it to start with, because you will be adjusting this again. I will guarantee it. And you need long arms. And you want this screw in there just loose so it can still slide back and forth. So we'll go ahead and put the other side in, and then we'll put the drawer box in there, and then we'll show you how we align the front. I'll talk to you in a couple seconds. All right, we got the runners in, and we're gonna go check the alignment now. So we're gonna go ahead and put the drawer box in. And this is a little challenge when we put the face frame on it, because I have no access through the top of the cabinet. So first step, we wanna check the fit. And a straight edge across there will tell you, and it's beautiful, that's perfect. Okay, the next problem is going to be is this drawer wants to go back too far when we try to put the front on. And also, I'm using this is a drawer front screw. It's designed for installing drawer fronts. This hole is drilled a little bit big, and that allows you to adjust that drawer if you have to. I was going to try some double face tape. I don't think that's going to work, so we're going to resort to some hot melt. So the first step we want to do is we're going to split this difference. So we're going to go with a 1-inch reveal. And I like to use a good clamp. And you want to make sure you're absolutely flush with the bottom of that frame, because otherwise you're going to be looking at a crooked drawer front. The hot melt, I don't know how forgiving it's going to be as far as if I'm able to adjust it. So I took some time and I put a line to the edge of the drawer front so I don't have to fumble around with it. Now, to solve the problem of the drawer pushing back too far, good old hunky ingenuity, I made some padding up out of cardboard and a little packing envelope. Tape it on the back of the drawer box. Push it back, and now we got a little bit of spring load there, which is going to help us out. Let's get the drawer front, and boy, did it turn out beautiful. Look at that. That is absolutely gorgeous. So, making sure there's nothing there to... We're going to have to move kind of quicker. I'm going to put 2 dabs of hot melt. We're going to line it up to the line. I'm going to press it in and let the glue do its thing. And then we can pull the drawer open and get these 4 screws in. So wish me luck. Let me get you a little bit better angle here. And I have this industrial hot melt glue gun. This thing is, okay, this is definitely the back. You can make mistakes so fast. It's unbelievable. Let me see if this thing is ready to deliver some glue. And it is. So, what I'm going to do, we're just going to put just a couple dabs. Good enough. And we're going to work fast, because that glue does not wait for you. Get it on the thing. Eye it up with the line. Press it in place. And hope for the best. We're sitting on that guide real nice. give it a few seconds here. And I'll go ahead and get the screw gun ready. I'm going to slowly open it up. What I'm going to do is get this spring clamp, and we're going to put that in place. And sometimes you gotta come up with ideas and hope they work. Okay, let's get you around back here. Let's see if I can get you up high enough to see something here. Again, I'm trying my best to give you a video that you might actually be able to learn something on. So again, I put the four screw holes. What I like to do is put the two top ones in and double check your alignment and sort of try to stay center on that hole. And I know that's probably pretty loud for you. Beautiful. All right, we can take this clamp off. We can take these off. And we can take our little spacer out. There we go. And we'll bring you around front here. That's not bad. Not bad for a Sawyer. All right, all we got left to do now is we'll finish fastening this in here. And in the instructions, it shows you at the very back here, there's little blocks that they want put back in here so that the microwave has something, when it pulls out, it don't try to lean down. So we'll go ahead and make some blocks up. And we are coming down the home stretch here, everybody. So we'll talk to you here in a minute. All right, here is the solution. In other words, they wanted this at 14 and 13/16 up. So I just cut a piece of plywood laying around. So here's your height. And a piece of 7/8 inch fits in there perfect. And all we're going to do is we're going to just fasten it to this little hanging rail. And I'm going to use the same drawer front screws. Well, here it is, the finished product. And the funny thing is he told me to build it for a 30-inch microwave, and they had ordered a 24-inch. And he didn't know it until they started unpacking everything they had bought back in Memorial Day. But the good news is a couple fillers. Now this cabinet is capable of doing a 24-inch or a 30-inch microwave. This automatically will come out when it's wired up. And you put your food in here and basically you push it shut. And this is the control panel. I'm not going to open this up, but this is how you control the thing. And there it is. The microwave cabinet is now finished, ready to ship out of here. So I'll give you a little close-up here. And it turned out really good. Like I said, a couple fillers, and we salvaged it. If it was the other way around, we would have been building a new cabinet if it had ordered a 30-inch and had one made for 24. So that gives them some options down the road. Again, we got a lot of nice drawer storage down below. And I hope everybody liked this video. And I'm going to try to get some more shop videos your way. I don't get the opportunity to build stuff too often, but I figured I'd take you along. I got a couple of little projects coming up in the future here. And if you like it, please hit the like button, and please subscribe if you haven't subscribed to the channel, and hit that bell to get notifications on the next video. So, all right, everybody, thank you again for watching, and I will catch you at the sawmill with the Eddie Horvath and ZZ Mark. Bye-bye.